the other thing we talked about Shanahan, do you believe in Shanahan? I kind of look at Shanahan as Andy Reid in Philly. Mm-hmm. Andy Reid won a ton in Philly.
Well, he's halfway there too.
Super Bowl, right? Yeah. And they just didn't win it, but they went to the Super Bowl, and he had a lot of winning seasons. But he was like 9-10 or something like that in the playoffs in Philly. Mm-hmm. Well, now, people were like, Andy Reid can't win the big one. Andy Reid can't win the big one. Well, guess what? He got a better quarterback with a few good personnel moves, and now he's won 2, and maybe he'll win 2 or 3 more. Who knows? So I kind of look at Shanahan as Reid pre-Kansas City, that he's going to win a Super Bowl or 2. All this criticism, I think these guys, those 2 guys, Reid and Shanahan.
But Reid didn't win in Philly, though.
No, he didn't win in Philly.
Yeah.
And they chased him out at that point. Mm-hmm. But I just think that those are the 2 best offensive play callers in the game right now.
Yeah.
And I think Shanahan is a lot, and it reminds me an awful lot of Reid.
Where are you putting, are we, I shouldn't say sleeping on, but McVay? Where are you putting McVay?
Well, first of all, when they were both, coming up and the Niners were talking about who to hire, I was all about McVay because I knew John McVay, and I thought I'd heard great things about Sean. I think McVay is an incredible coach. Now Kyle owns him head to head, but McVay's got a Super Bowl. He's got 2 appearances and 1 win. I think McVay's not in it long term, though. I think Kyle's more of a lifer. I think McVay's going to wind up. He's going to coach 2-3 more years, maybe build the Rams up 1 more time, and then I think he's jetting for the TV booth. I think he's going to be like Madden. He's going to have a long run in the TV booth.
And now that he has his ring, all is well that ends well. That's how it goes sometimes. 888-957-9570. Do you believe in Kyle Shanahan? Abraham in Sacramento does. What's up, Abraham? You're on the Morning Roast.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. A lot of good content today. I'm excited. Just give me some live football. Forget the preseason. But congratulations to all those Niners that did make it. And for all the rest, keep grinding. So I believe in Kyle Shanahan. And there's a couple of things to point out. One is the main thing a head coach should be doing is putting their players in a position to win. And I think Kyle's been doing that since he's gotten there. Him and, our GM have been doing a great job of creating a team and getting those players there in that position. So it wasn't Kyle who threw that ball and missed in the Super Bowl that had that touchdown. It wasn't Kyle who dropped that potential interception that could have sealed the game in the NFC Championship game. He puts those players there, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. So I think the preparedness and having him there is still there. And the league says, this is a guy that you can give him practically any quarterback, and he'll make them successful. The other thing I'll say, too, is if you're going to get rid of him, who are you going to replace him with? Who's out there that's so hot that you need to have that person to come in here and change everything? And last point is, even with the changes in coaching staff, we're losing game coordinators, pass game coordinators, using defensive coaches who are now on a team who has Super Bowl aspirations, but nobody's questioning that coach, the Jets, right? It's not about that coach. So this guy has put everybody on the team in a state of preparedness. Now, he will get them there. Now they have to execute on their end.
Thanks for the call, Abraham.
Good stuff. Yeah. Did you see the Joe Banner quote on the 33rd team on Twitter? Do you follow the 33rd team?
Yeah.
It was a couple weeks ago. I think it was like middle of August. And Joe Banner was on there, and he was talking about Shanahan. He worked with Shanahan. And he said, and he was talking about trading Trey Lance. And he basically said, man, when Kyle is emotional, and when he makes a decision on a player, he said it's hard to get him back into a place where he can be objective. And so Banner was advocating the Niners move on from Trey because he felt like Trey was kind of dead man walking in San Francisco. And I thought that was really interesting. This is a guy who actually coached, or, he's an executive who worked with Kyle. And I get that vibe as well, that, Kyle's, when he's into you, when he believes in it, he's all in. But then if he loses that belief, it's hard for him to kind of rebuild that. I think maybe somewhere along the line he lost that belief in Jimmy. Look how many times the Niners ran the ball in that Super Bowl run. It was a lot about, run the ball against Minnesota, run the ball against Green Bay. When Jimmy actually had to throw it against Kansas City in the Super Bowl, he was atrocious. Yeah. People talk about that that Emmanuel Sanders missed in the fourth quarter. How about the interception off his back foot with Chris Jones's face mask basically attached to his, and he just floated some weak pass to the sideline that got easily picked off. So I just think Kyle had lost his belief in Jimmy. I think maybe to some degree he had lost his belief that Lance was going to be able to operate his system. I think he's totally on board and believes that Purdy's the quarterback that he can win with, that can run his system. And also, a lot of people are saying, well, Purdy's going to backslide this year. Look at Matt Ryan year one in that offense. Year two, Matt Ryan won the MVP of the league.
Well, who do you think has better weapons as well?
Well, I mean, that Matt Ryan, that team had Tevin Coleman. Yeah. They had Julio Jones. Mm-hmm. They had Tony Gonzalez, right? They had some big-time guys. But, I mean, these weapons are second to none.
I was going to say they definitely rival. They definitely rival.
It's interesting too. People talking about we're talking to Joe Montana later today. The last two times the Niners have won the Super Bowl, their weapons have been off the charts. Steve Young had Ricky Waters, bar none, Brent Jones, John Taylor, Jerry Rice. Montana in his last couple Super Bowls had Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, and those same guys, Jones, Rice, and Taylor. So, I mean, the Niners, when they have won the Super Bowl in the last whatever number of years, 30 years, they've done it with a crazy group of weapons, and they got a great group this year.
Yeah, and I understand if you want the Niners to cash in on this because you're tired of being the bridesmaid, but honestly, there are a lot worse places to be. Okay, you had a Raider fan call in earlier talking about Brock falling off a cliff, shout out Jay, in the town, and the Raiders are hoping to make the playoffs, right? A lot of these teams, I would never use the word spoiled because I do understand you want to win the big one. It's that tease. But we talk about McVay. Would you rather be a Rams fan? Now take the fandom out of it because we know Niners fans are just in a different stratosphere than Rams fans when it comes to traveling and just everything in general. But would you rather have the one Super Bowl and not really in the mix? Or because they did go all in, they fully went all in as much as you can, or would you rather be in the conversation every single season and believe that one of these days you're going to get it done? And going back to Brock Purdy, I'm excited to see what the truth is, because when Jimmy came in after Trey got hurt, what did he say? Oh, it's given kind of throwback vibes, and everybody was excited about having Jimmy because he was throwing the football. So I'm excited to see, okay, what is Kyle Shanahan's offense? If Brock is essentially your hand-picked guy, a different quarterback than what Trey would be in whatever dimension we want to put Trey hits his ceiling in, but if this is your hand-picked guy, I am excited to see, and we saw for 8 games or 7 games last season, but I'm excited to see, okay, I'm Kyle Shanahan. Have we ever seen Kyle Shanahan, offensive guru, with the guy that now they wanted Jimmy? Jimmy, after the injury, was a different Jimmy, but just seeing Kyle with the guy that he wants to see, okay, this guy, basically the handcuffs are off. Let's see what Kyle can do. I don't know that you'll ever have more weapons, okay? And every time somebody, whether it's Jonathan Taylor, who I accidentally drafted in my fantasy, whether it's Jonathan Taylor.
It's not a month, you know.
I know. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jonathan Taylor or whoever has been connected to the Niners, but without all that, with the guys you have now, I don't know that you'll ever have this many more weapons. Offensively, defensively, you're stacked. We'll talk about Nick Bosa a little bit later. So it's not you gotta go now, but I don't know that we'll ever see Kyle in a stronger situation to show as much as he wants to show.
You know, just from being there every day this summer, it's a hugely different looking offense than it was last summer.
There you go.
Last summer, there was lots of read option, Alan. Yeah. Lots of read option plays.
And they're honest now, because I don't know, Larry, again, you're in the building. It didn't feel like, it felt like last season, Kyle tried to fight back on why that was happening. Hey, it's just our offense. And then this year, after he's gone or out the window, yeah, he could. They didn't say he couldn't throw, but they basically said, he said, what did he say? We implemented an offense we thought Trey wasn't ready, and we implemented an offense that we thought would help the skills that he does have. Then the whole thing came out. They thought he'd be faster. So we now know it wasn't we know that it wasn't just, hey, we're just going to try this out and see how it looks. No, we don't believe that he can throw the ball the way I want. So now, to your point, we're going to see what Kyle Shanahan actually wants.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Guys who are strong always bench at the combine. Guys who are fast always run the 40. Guys who are weak don't bench. Guys who are slow don't run. Trey did not run the 40.
It was always weird.
That was an indication right there.
Yeah.
You think if he ran 4.4 flat like Justin Fields, you think he would have ran?
You want to show that off.
I think he would have ran. But last year in camp, we saw a lot of read option. We saw a lot of it. I mean, a lot of quarterback runs, a lot of read option. This year, we're seeing a lot of throwing to the backs. And we're seeing a lot of draws, a lot of screens, a lot of the short game, a lot of the bootleg game, a lot of the things that Kyle likes to run and that Brock runs exceptionally well, right? And now that you have McCaffrey, why wouldn't you want to throw screens to McCaffrey, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, that could be an unstoppable play. So I'm eager to see what it looks like this year. As far as the defense, I mean, we're talking so much about the quarterbacks and so much about Bosa that I think it's kind of camouflaging some of the real issues. I asked Shanahan yesterday, I said, how concerned are you about the run D? I go, you guys have given up two. If you just go on to the preseason, Denver and Chargers, both those teams gashed you for 6.5 yards a pop.
Right.
He said, you know what? I haven't liked the run D the entire camp. He goes, I didn't like the run D in the Raider game either. I thought our run D was getting gashed there too. So, he also kind of, put it in perspective and said, Chargers had a running quarterback. We didn't adjust to him. Joshua Kelly got loose for a 75-yard run. That changes the numbers.
Yeah.
But I think the run D, especially, they haven't had a run plugger in the A-gap since DJ Jones left for Denver 2 years ago. So how good are they against the run? Can Kinlaw be a factor there? And then, Ebukam, Amenahue, and Willis, those guys averaged 91 snaps in the 3 playoff games last year, and you replaced them with Kerry Hyder, Austin Bryant, Cleveland Farrell. I don't think those guys are as good as the guys you had. So if you don't get Bosa back, I mean, Drake's going to be way better, and Bosa is Bosa.
I like Drake.
Drake's, but how many snaps is Drake going to be asked to play? And can these other backup defensive ends, because I asked Kocurek about 3 weeks ago, I go, you going to play your number one D-line a lot more snaps? He's like, no, I'm going to rotate my guys the way I always do, because otherwise my guys are going to be done before we even get to December. So that means that those backup DNs have better be able to rush the passer.
Right.
And it's going to start week 1 against Pickett at Heinz Field. Can the Niners rush the passer, and can they stop the run? I think both those questions are kind of up in the air, especially when Bosa and Jackson are not on the field.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's all connected. That's why they call football the ultimate team sport, because if you can't get to the quarterback, now you're exposing your secondary, and that's the question marks with the nickel in that whole situation.
And if you can't stop the run, Alan, who cares if you got Nick Bosa, the greatest pass rusher of all time? If you're constantly sitting at 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, guess what? You got Nick Bosa's awesome if you get to 3rd and long.
Right.
But if you can't get to 3rd and long, what good is he?
Yeah, exactly. 888